Welcome to season 2 of Dr. G at the Heart of Healthcare. Today I have the creator of FireNote, a new EMR that's going to save our lives. Just kidding. In healthcare, and we're going to learn all about that today. And we also have Abbi, who is the partner, helping with partner engagement in the community and all that stuff. And so we're just going to talk about this amazing EMR you told me about when we were in Arkansas at the NHPCO ALC conference. Good morning.
Good morning. Thanks for having us.
Of course. So let me get a little bit of background before we get into this. So Lenny or Abbi, who wants to go first? How did you get into this EMR creativity?
Yeah, so my wife and I have been running hospices since 2006 and gone through multiple EMRs and became frustrated with our previous EMR and just got to the point of it's just going to be better to build it ourselves. So we started that about 6 years ago. And I took, most EMRs require 5 or 6 bolt-ons to make it work, to make it effective. For instance, of EPCS, prescription for a physician, right? It's not really built into the system ever. But from a provider standpoint, you got to have it. So I'm a nurse practitioner now. We do hospice every day and use the system every day to make sure it works the way it's supposed to work and function effectively and quickly for our team. So mostly FireNote is built out of frustration.
I like that. I'm so glad you cut right to the chase, because what have I heard? Death by clicks. Physicians saying that, I can only speak for physicians because that's who's complaining next to me, in my career. But I'm sure, all the charting that nurses have to do and nurse practitioners have to do, it's burdensome. And so out of frustration, you just created it. But how did you said something about bolt-ons, you drop in things on me that I don't know, vocabulary. Is that something that's a tech word or?
Oh, sorry. Yeah. So, you'll have your base EMR, you'll have a fax document management system. You'll have the PBM will have a prescribing platform. You'll have a EMR platform or a CRM platform, and everything's trying to bolt onto these systems. And some of the systems are built for that. And so you pay your core price for your EMR, but then you pay double for all these bolt-ons, and it just creates a clunky workflow at best. It's funny you mentioned death by clicks. Abbi and I were in Kansas, and the physician literally built a mouse click program so he could have his mouse click over, was it 30 times per cert?
No way.
He would type what he has to do and then hit click, and his mouse would just sit there and click.
And to be very clear, this was not in our system.
Not in our system, no. No. It was just amazing to see the physicians specifically, right? Physicians don't have the time to mess around. So
no, we don't.
Making the documentation requirement on physicians to make sure a patient's hospice appropriate and we're doing the right thing for the right patient, it's just become too cumbersome and too hard.
Well, wow. Well, Abbi, tell me how you got engaged in this in your background.
So I started in hospice over 6 years ago, so not nearly as long as Lenny, obviously, but I started in Lenny's actually hospice that he owns in the Boise, Idaho area. Started just kind of like a receptionist gig, and then moved into more clinical assisting, intake, and then eventually found myself out in the field as a liaison and marketing for hospice. And I loved it. When I first started for him over 6 years ago, FireNote was kind of chatter that we had heard about that was coming. And eventually they're like, okay, we actually need someone to sell this thing and take it out to the industry. So I threw my hat in the ring, and here I am. So
awesome.
Been selling it for about 1.5 years working with the community.
Fantastic. So how many agencies or approximately are using it? Like, what's some of the feedback you're getting from it? Tell us about that journey.
So we started, truly our very first client was September of 2022, other than our pilot sites. We had piloted it for a few years. In 2022, we had someone sign on that was like, this is super cool. We'll just kind of Hail Mary, let's see if it works out. Client's still with us, so all good there. And then we kind of hit the ground running and grew very quickly. So in under 2 years of trying to take on new clients across the nation, we're in 25 states and on track to be in 48 or 49 of them by the end of this year.
Fantastic. So I was joking in the beginning about saving us because, I know the frustration, but we kind of just deal with what we need to deal with so we can get the documentation done, but it's burdensome. And again, I don't know if you saw that podcast I did with Hospice News talking about compliance and about how the documentation burdens that I've seen for the nurses and things like that, that's a barrier to getting things done, and having our work streamlined. We're doing the work. We're all doing the work. We're having the meetings. We're doing the visits. But then there's this extra thing we have to do. It's just become crazy. So, Lenny, could you talk to us a little bit about how this program is going to make us have a better life?
Yeah, so specifically for physicians, partly to make my own life easier, but we wanted to make that workflow as effective as possible. And so it's very easy. We have a few different things. So we have trending charts that do mathematical regressions for hard patient data, MAC scores, heart rates, blood pressures, weights, PPS scores, FAST scores, all that stuff is mathematically pulled out of the system, and it's presented to the physician to say, hey, this is why your patient's appropriate for hospice. It's very hard data that's put in by the nurse. And then they have the option of putting in some subjective data. Say you have a patient on they're in their third cert period, but they've only been on your hospice for a month, right? So you still have a chance to create that narrative of why that patient needs to be on hospice until you can get enough data in to where the system is saying, you have a very clear trend line of weight loss. You have a very clear trend line of MAC decrease. And so it allows for a much easier CTI process for the physician because you don't have to go digging into 5 different spots. We have a very simplified document management system, but we kind of just serve it to you on a gold platter to say, these are the things that you should look at to say, is my patient appropriate for hospice or not? And we do that for every nurse visit. We do that for every IDG. And then, of course, during the CTI process and the recertification process.
I love that because, I can just think about various workflows. I try to help hospice physicians. I wrote that book, the pocket guide to help with the workflow because most people do hospice on the side. Most physicians, let's just be honest about that. And so they don't have time to be in their clinic seeing 30 patients and then helping a hospice, which we want you guys to come on and help us out. We want good medical directors in these hospice agencies.
Absolutely.
But to go in there and have to look in the, I don't want to drop any names, have to look in the HIPAA compliant text thread, then look over here, then go find the nurse's note and then pull all that together. Some EMRs, I am a witness. I don't even know where the CTI thing is. You don't even know how to save it. You don't know how to do anything. And it's ridiculous. I really honestly do not understand. But I want to talk about some of the things you say on your website. And I am going to have a link to that in your show notes. You're talking about, blazing fast compliance, because that's the stuff that hospice agencies want to hear, right? Stop letting the inefficiencies of your hospice EMR steal time from your patients and team. Steals our time. And with FireNote, we can invest time with our patients and waste less time charting. That is wonderful. And I like the word you use. You talk about FireNote's intuitive, user-friendly interface and care plans backed by your proprietary informed intelligence technology, and that it enhances compliance and all that stuff. So how did you create that proprietary informed intelligence thingy?
Yeah, so there's a lot of things that you hit on there. Probably one of my favorite things from a physician and nurses speaking the same language. Coming in as a nurse practitioner, I have a little bit of both worlds. And physicians and nurses sometimes speak different languages. And especially if a physician's not used to hospice or new to the hospice world. Physicians speak in ICD-10 language. Nurses speak in nursing care plan language. And whether they know it or not, they're saying the same thing, just one's from Mars, one's from Venus, right? It's just different. And so what we did is we created a centralized care plan. It's our control panel. It manages everything that the patient needs. And so it's ICD-10 driven. Our nurses and physicians have the ability to stack as many ICD-10s as they need to make sure that they care for the patient. So you may have a heart failure patient with AFib, with lower extremity edema, with shortness of breath. And all those things come into the ICD-10 process. And then the nurse underneath that can create a nursing care plan, a nursing goal, and nursing interventions. We have hard-coded for our social worker, our chaplain, and our CNA, and then our therapists, different ICD-10s, just because nurses are the closest ones to that process. And so they have the most flexibility. And so we find that by having our care plan set up under ICD-10s and then our medication specifically, you have to choose, why am I giving this patient a medication? I'm not giving them Lasix for AFib, right? I'm giving them Lasix for edema. Okay, now what are we doing for that edema? Are we doing compression? And then that all turns into a physician order. Mm-hmm. I would love to show, I don't know if we showed you our workflow when we met, but
you did.
The physician workflow is awesome.
Yeah.
But when we start putting our interventions under the right ICD-10, physicians can understand better what's going on, and then the whole team can understand better. And we found that it allows the physician to be more engaged in IDGs. Like you said, we have some physicians that are full-time, hospice is their only world, and they're fantastic. And then we have other great physicians that are seeing those 30 patients in their clinic and then trying to do hospice either in between visits, at lunch, or at night, or on the weekend. And so we're trying to make all those, trying to help physicians understand what's going on in the care plan, and then the nurses understand a little bit better what the physicians are doing. And by doing that, we're able to get a more hospice appropriate patient, a more hospice appropriate ICD-10 list that allows us to cruise through ADRs that otherwise we have this random list of ICD-10s that have nothing to do with what we're doing with hospice. And then these nursing care plans that have nothing to do with the ICD-10s that we have. And so it really helps when we're getting audited to flow on our ADRs much easier.
I love that. Could you explain to the people who don't know what ADRs are, what that means?
Oh, sorry. Additional documentation request.
Yes.
And I think they've come up with other 4-lettered words like ZPIC and UPIC and everything else.
Yeah. The value of this, I really think, is the fact that you are a clinician, so you know what we need. I think most of these EMRs, and I don't want to just make things up, I don't think they even consulted the people who actually use it, because if they did, they wouldn't be built this way. And so, thank you for doing that and putting it out here. And I hope more people look into EMRs that are intuitive, like FireNote. If you were able to speak to, we're going to have Hospice Action News coming up soon, doing a lot of advocacy, and I do a lot of advocacy online and around, and I'm going to be supporting them. Like, what would you say to the advocates, the legislators and all of them, about helping with the staffing crisis with nurses and all this stuff, as relates to, this documentation issue?
Yeah, we so been doing hospice for 22 years now in some level. I have never had a problem finding a nurse. We want to treat our team well. We get employee referrals. This is the first year we've struggled finding nurses, and it's been a new experience for us. But as we ebb and flow, this system has allowed us to carry loads and take care of patients that I never want for my hospice nurses, but they still have a quality of life because they're still charting fast enough. You talked about, we claim blazing speed on our site. And so, I won't lie. I don't know why other systems are slow. We have the ability to turn a knob on a server to turn up the speed. And so we just crank ours all the way up. And, And then, our nurses are charting a regular visit in 4 to 10 minutes, depending on their experience. They're doing a full-blown admission from start to finish in 45 minutes in charting versus the industry average. I think a nurse did a study last year at the NHPCO conference presenting on the burden of charting, and the average nurse was spending 4 hours charting an admission. And that was our experience 7 years ago with the system that we had. It was just, you had to go chart your head to toe, and then you had to chart your care plan, and then you had to go back and chart any QAPI events, and then you had to go back and chart your oversight. And it was just 5 different areas. Nobody knew where anything was at. It took us forever.
It's crazy.
If we would have gone through COVID with our old system, I would have no team left. We implemented the software right before Alpha Wave hit us. And the only reason not the only reason, but a big reason why we survived was the new system we had. And everybody was like 3 months into it. And we were doing 25 to 30 admissions on a weekend in our system.
Whoa.
There were some crazy times, but the team made it through. And they made it through because we had the system that was able to keep up with them.
That makes sense. There are some hospices out there that still have papers for their nurses, where they're having to write 6 pages for each updated plan of care, every 2 weeks. Actually, some hospice agencies are requiring it to be done every week. You have nurses that are driving in traffic. I'm in California. You guys are over there in Idaho, so you may not have as much traffic, but you
guys transported your traffic up here.
Oh, we did. Everyone's moving there. Yeah, but seriously, I remember a nurse, she's trying to make calls to pick up her kids, calling me, Dr. G, I want to order this, and kind of going through her day, and the things that she was planning to put in once she got home, pick up her kids, and then having to sit there and chart.
Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense. So thank you so much. I'm not a tech person, but I am a clinician. And if I have anything to say about this, I would just ask that the powers that be, you're a power that be, but you chose to create a solution for your team. And I appreciate that. But I hope that the others can just really look into other options that will help your teams. I think an efficient EMR can save your team. It can make the staffing shortage not feel so hurtful, not have that sting. And, it'll be a response to you referring to hospice nurse Shelley, and her Your Opinion Matters survey that she presents all around the country. That was the main thing. And so if we want to save the nursing industry, then we should think about this.
It has to be easier. We found as we transition some of these programs off of different platforms, there's still this, most of these systems started as home health software, and then they bolted on hospice. Mm-hmm. And so even when we talk to national survey companies, they get confused between home health regulations and hospice regulations. We are dialed in on hospice regulations, right? And anything outside of that does not matter because it shouldn't matter to the surveyors coming in. And so I made a comment to a surveyor saying, you're asking me to make a nurse work 5 extra minutes for something that doesn't meet the COP for hospice. I'm not going to build that in.
Nice.
And so I don't want these nurses to be sitting home with their watching their family play while they're charting. One of our customer service reps, they had some extra time on their hands. They made a video that basically was saying your dog misses you. Stop charting and you should be playing with your dog.
That's sad though. That's sad.
Yeah.
We just had the not the annual assembly, that's another conference, but the American College of Physicians conference in Boston, and the opening keynote was by Dr. Eric Topol, and the title was something to the effect of how AI can change our lives, like to help us have more compassion, to help us be better physicians. But he put up a graphic that showed how medicine has become where we're seeing patients with our back turned. because we're on the computer.
Interesting.
You know, I know you're focused on hospice, but I want to look at the bigger problem of how these EMRs have ruined healthcare. Well, added to the problem, I should say, the problems in the
Yes.
system. And so we should be able to spend time with our patients and use these computers that know how to do everything to document it for us. So I'm going to let you wrap this up. You know, how do you want to leave our listeners with FireNote?
Abby, what do you got?
Just wait a minute. Well, I did want to add something, Dr. G. We were talking about that you guys are out there doing it. That's what you said. We're doing the work. And it reminded me of kind of a cheesy thing we tell people when we're demoing the product inside the care plans. Lenny explained the care plan really thoroughly, but there's a live part of that care plan that when they're actually in there interacting with it, they can click performed, functional DME, reviewed this medication. And so that's the live part of that care plan that gives them credit for doing the work. And that's a big piece that I think our clients are loving, especially come survey, because everything ties in together without redundancy. And I think that's one of the reasons FireNote is much faster. The other piece is that RapidChart technology, which you saw in Arkansas. Yeah. And so those are the ways we're doing things faster. I don't want the community to be confused. We are not using AI. It is patented that informed intelligence for a reason. Okay. And just make sure we like to be clear about that. We've been asked by 3 or 4 different people now to speak about AI at NHPCO. And we won't be doing that because it's not what we're doing, but we're happy to share with what we are doing that makes it much faster. So I just really appreciate your time. It's been fun to talk about it.
Yeah. And I want to remember that, what happened with that Starbucks story? Let's wrap it up with that.
Well, it's Starburst and
Starburst. Yeah.
We had our very first conference, no one knew who the heck we were. So we got in this habit of making sure we had candy out because it makes people come talk to us. People like Dr. G, she saw the Starburst. So we were sitting there splitting the yellow and pink ones, and Troy came over, the chief product officer, and he wanted to just be cool with us and talk Starburst and like girl talk. And we're like, sir, please take a seat. So Dr. G sat him back down, and it was pretty funny.
Because we were talking about Starburst. I think we were talking about the pink one versus the yellow ones and the orange ones. And I love the yellow and the orange ones. And I know there's memes that say, don't let people treat you like a yellow one. And I'm like, what? I like those.
I don't know. I think they're good.
Ones? Which ones do you like?
Pink and yellow.
Okay, how about you, Lenny? Do you eat
Starburst? I'm going for pink. Pink is definitely the one I go for.
You can buy the tiny bags of all pink Starburst. It's the best.
Well, we'll make a great team. We have to have an interdisciplinary team in hospice so everyone gets their color that they like. It's been, we'll end on that. It's been so fun to learn about FireNote. Congratulations on all your success and really making an impact on the hospice industry. Like, this is exciting.
Yeah, thanks, Dr. G.
All right. Thanks for being here. Signing out. Peace.
Have a great day.
Bye.